Steph Curry was living through his worst days in the NBA. 3 consecutive losses, devastating media criticism, and the pressure to prove that at 36 years old, he was still the same legendary player. But then, something unexpected happened. Riley, his 12-year-old daughter who had avoided the spotlight for 2 years, made a decision that would change everything. What she did that day touched the hearts of millions of people around the world. The morning fog of San Francisco was beginning to dissipate over the bay, but inside the Curry mansion in Atherton, the atmosphere remained dense. Steph Curry was in the kitchen at 6:30 in the morning, absent-mindedly stirring a cup of coffee that had already gone cold, his eyes fixed on the iPhone screen where sports headlines kept appearing. Is Curry in decline at 36 years old? Warriors need a new leader. The end of an era in Golden State? Each notification was like a small stab. 3 consecutive games below. His usual statistics, 2 crucial errors in final moments. And suddenly, all the sports media was questioning whether the Steph Curry they knew still existed. "Honey, you haven't even touched your coffee," said Isha, entering the kitchen already dressed for her morning meeting. She knew that look, the mixture of determination and frustration that took over her husband when things weren't going well on the court. Steph looked up, forcing a smile. "Sorry, I was just, you know." "Reading what they're saying about you again?" Isha approached, placing her hand on his shoulder. "Steph, you've been through this before. Remember 2019? Everyone said it was over, and then you came back stronger. It was different. I was younger, had more." He paused, running his hand over his face. "Sometimes I feel like I'm fighting against time, Isha, and losing." From upstairs, Riley was coming down the stairs silently, her socks allowing her to move without making noise. At 12 years old, she had developed an almost supernatural radar for the tensions in the house. It was as if she could sense when her father was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. She stopped at the bottom of the staircase, listening to her parents' conversation. For years, Riley had been the star of her father's press conferences, stealing the scene with her spontaneity and natural charm. But as she grew older, she began to realize that attention came with a price. At 12 years old, she had consciously chosen to step away from the spotlight, preferring a more normal teenage life. "Did Ryan and Cannon already leave for school?" asked Steph, clearly trying to change the subject. "Yes, they left early today. Riley is still getting ready," responded Isha, looking toward the stairs where she knew her eldest daughter was listening. Riley decided to come down the rest of the steps, making noise purposefully to announce her arrival. "Good morning," she said, trying to sound casual. "Good morning, Princess." Steph got up to hug her, and in that moment Riley felt the tension in her father's muscles. It was like hugging someone who was holding himself together to keep from breaking. During breakfast, a silent tension hung over the table. Steph checked his phone compulsively. Isha tried to maintain normal conversation about the day's plans, and Riley observed everything with the sharp perception of someone who grew up in a house where everyone's mood depended, to some degree, on how things were going on the court. "Dad," said Riley suddenly, "are you going to practice today?" "Yes, I am. I need to work on some things before tomorrow's game," Steph responded, his voice carrying forced determination. "Can I watch?" Steph and Isha exchanged glances. In the last 2 years, Riley had stopped asking to watch practices or games. She still went when it was necessary for important family events, but had clearly chosen to stay away from the world that once adored her. "Of course, if you want to," said Steph, genuinely surprised. Later that morning, While Steph was getting ready to go to the Warriors training center, Riley was in her room, looking out the window at the family's private court in the backyard. She could see her father down there, shooting alone, even knowing he had official practice in a few hours. Each shot seemed to carry urgency, a desperate need to prove something. To the world, to the team, maybe to himself. Riley counted. He made 47 out of 53-point attempts, but still seemed unsatisfied. She went down to the backyard, walking silently to the side of the court. Steph didn't notice her initially, so concentrated was he on his solitary training ritual. When he finally saw her, he stopped shooting. "How long have you been there?" he asked, breathing heavily. "A few minutes," Riley approached, picking up one of the balls. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Are you okay?" The question caught Steph off guard. He was used to direct questions about basketball, about tactics, about injuries, but he wasn't prepared for the genuine concern in his 12-year-old daughter's eyes. "Why do you ask?" "Because you're training like the world is going to end. And Mom has that look she has when she's worried, but doesn't want to show it." Riley bounced the ball a few times. "And because you haven't really smiled in 3 days." Steph sat on the portable bleachers they had in the backyard, signaling for Riley to join him. For a moment, they stayed in silence, looking at San Francisco Bay in the distance. "You know, Riley, sometimes in this job, people expect you to be perfect all the time. And when you're not," he paused, looking for the right words. "When you have some bad games, suddenly everyone questions everything you've ever done." "But you're the best shooter in basketball history," Riley said, with the absolute certainty that only a daughter can have about her father. Steph smiled, the first genuine smile in days. "Thank you for believing in me, Princess." "Dad," Riley hesitated for a moment, "is tomorrow's game important?" "Very important. If we lose, our playoff chances get really complicated." Riley was silent for a moment, processing. Then, with the determination she had inherited from her father, she said, "I want to go." Steph looked at her, surprised. "Are you sure? You don't need to feel obligated." "It's not obligation," Riley interrupted him. "It's because you need to know that your family believes in you, even when you don't believe in yourself." That night, during family dinner, there was a different energy in the air. Steph seemed lighter, more present. Ryan and Cannon, 8-year-old twins, were excited about the news that Riley was going to the game. It was rare for the whole family to go together in recent times. "Riley, are you sure?" asked Isha for the third time. "You know they'll take pictures, and it might be that—" "Mom, I know," Riley interrupted her gently. "I grew up in this, remember? I know how to handle it." But later, alone in her room, Riley looked in the mirror and felt that familiar anxiety in her stomach. She had spent the last 2 years carefully building a life away from the spotlight, away from the cameras that had followed her since she was little. Going to the game meant voluntarily returning to that world. But when she thought about her father's expression that morning, about how his shoulders seemed to carry the weight of all the world's expectations, she knew she would do it again. 1,000 times, if necessary. Outside, Steph was on the court again, shooting under the backyard lights. But this time, there was something different in his posture. Less desperation, more determination. As if the simple act of knowing that his family would be there, that Riley would be there, had reignited something inside him. Riley fell asleep that night to the rhythmic sound of the ball, bouncing and the rim being hit repeatedly. It was a familiar lullaby that had accompanied her since childhood. the sound of her father preparing for another battle, but now knowing he wouldn't be fighting alone. The pressure was still there. The criticism still hurt. But tomorrow, for the first time in months, Steph Curry would enter the court knowing that his daughter chose to be there. Not out of obligation, but out of love. And that made all the difference in the world. Steph's alarm went off at 5:45, but he had already been awake for 20 minutes, staring at the bedroom ceiling. Game day always brought different energy, but today there was something more, an electricity in the air that seemed to carry all the weight of the season. Isha stirred beside him. "Didn't sleep at all, did you?" "A few hours," Steph lied, already getting up. His game day routine was sacred. Black coffee, oatmeal with red berries, 45 minutes of meditation, then straight to the chase, center. But today, for some reason, everything seemed disorganized, as if the universe was slightly off its axis. Downstairs, Riley was already in the kitchen, playing with her phone while eating cereal. She had woken up early, anxious about her decision to go to the game. During the night, she had changed her mind at least 5 times. "Good morning, Princess," said Steph, kissing the top of her head. "Excited about today?" Riley looked at him, noticing the more pronounced dark circles than usual. "Dad, you look more nervous than me." "Lakers always make me nervous," he admitted, preparing his coffee. "Especially when..." "When what?" "Nothing. It's an important game." But Riley was no longer the 6-year-old child who accepted vague answers. "Dad, every game is important to you. There's something else." Steph paused, measuring his words. How to explain to his 12-year-old daughter that each game now seemed like an opportunity to prove he still belonged among basketball's elite? How to say that each mistake was amplified, each success questioned whether it was luck or skill? "It's just that sometimes I feel like I have to prove I'm still the same player as always, and that sometimes weighs heavy," he finally said. Riley finished her cereal and got up. "Dad, you're 36 years old, not 76, and you're still better than most guys who are 26." The brutal simplicity of the observation made Steph laugh for the first time that morning. "Thank you for the perspective, Dr. Curry." At 8:30, Steph's phone started ringing. First it was Steve Kerr, confirming tactical adjustments. Then Draymond Green, always intense before important games. Next, Chris Paul, discussing how to attack the Lakers' defense. Meanwhile, Riley went upstairs to get dressed, but stopped in front of the closet, paralyzed. What outfit to choose to return to the spotlight? Something discreet that wouldn't draw attention, or, except that, being Steph Curry's daughter, attention was inevitable? Isha appeared in the bedroom doorway. "Need help?" "Mom, how did I do this when I was little? How did I not care about the cameras?" Isha sat on the bed. "When you were little, you didn't know you were being photographed. You were just being you, happy to be with your dad. And now I know that every expression of mine will become a meme on the internet," Riley sighed. "Riley, you don't have to go if you don't want to. Your dad will understand." "No, I want to go," she said, determined. "It's just that I forgot what it's like to be in that world." She finally chose a Warriors t-shirt, not the official jersey, but one her father had given her a few years ago, washed so many times it was soft as silk. Dark jeans, comfortable sneakers, the look of someone who was there to cheer, not to be seen. Meanwhile, at the Chase Center, Steph was arriving for his pre-game routine. The Warriors' locker room had its usual energy before. Important games, loud music, nervous jokes among players, each one's ritual to prepare mentally. "Steph!" shouted Draymond as soon as he saw him. "Man, you're different today. What happened?" "Riley's going to be at the game," said Steph, adjusting his sneakers. "It's not the first time," commented Klay Thompson, stretching nearby. "It's the first time in almost 2 years that she asked to go," Steph corrected. "On her own." The locker room got a little quieter. Everyone knew Riley since she was little, had seen her grow up in press conferences, at games, at practices, and everyone also noticed when she started pulling away. "Then we better play well today," said Chris Paul, with the seriousness of someone who understands the weight of having family watching. At 11 o'clock, Isha, Riley, and the twins left home heading to San Francisco. Riley was quiet in the back seat, watching the familiar peninsula landscape pass by the window. Ryan and Cannon were talking excitedly about the game, but she was lost in thoughts. "Mom," she said when they reached the Golden Gate Bridge, "what if I do something embarrassing? What if I cry? What if—" "Riley," Isha interrupted her gently, "you grew up in this environment. You know how to behave. And more importantly, you're going there to support your dad, not to be perfect for the cameras." "But what if I become a meme again?" "Then you become a meme. So what? You became a meme at 4 years old and survived." Isha smiled in the rearview mirror. As they approached the Chase Center, Riley saw the first fan congregations. Yellow and blue jerseys everywhere, people lining up to enter, street vendors offering fake jerseys and hot dogs. San Francisco's pre-game energy was unique, a mix of Silicon Valley technology with old-school sports passion. "Here we go," murmured Riley when the family car stopped at the VIP entrance. Immediately, flashes started going off. Riley heard someone shout, "It's Riley! Riley Curry is here!" and felt that familiar wave of anxiety mixed with something else. Nostalgia, maybe. Or recognition that whether she wanted it or not, that world was part of who she was. She walked beside her mother, smiling politely at the cameras, but not stopping for poses. Isha had taught her, be polite, but you owe nothing to anyone beyond basic civility. Behind the scenes, Steph was finishing his warm-up when he learned the family had arrived. Immediately, he felt more centered. It was as if a part of him that was floating loose had finally anchored. "They're here," said Quinn Cook, who had seen the family pass through the corridors. Steph smiled. "Good." "Do you want to see them before the game?" asked one of the team assistants. "No, let them get settled. I'll see them after," said Steph, but his eyes involuntarily searched in the direction of the family stands. At 6 o'clock, 1 hour before the game started, Riley was sitting in the family VIP section, watching the Chase Center fill up. It was impressive how the venue's energy changed as people arrived. What started as a large empty space now pulsed with 18,000 voices, each carrying their own hopes for that night. "Are you okay?" asked Isha, noticing that Riley was quieter than usual. "I'm just processing. I forgot how intense it is here." Downstairs, the Warriors were doing their final warm-up. Steph was in his zone, systematic shots from different positions, specific movements he would repeat during the game. But his eyes kept searching in the stands. It was then that Riley made a decision. "Mom, can I go down there? Just for a minute?" Isha hesitated. "Are you sure?" "I am. I want him to know I'm here." Riley got up, feeling the TV cameras following her as she went down the stairs toward the court. Each step seemed to echo louder than the previous one. The fans around began to notice who it was, some shouting her name, others simply pointing and whispering. Steph was with his back to the stands, concentrated on his final shots, when he heard someone shout, "Steph, your daughter!" He turned and saw her, Riley walking determinedly in his direction, crossing the side of the court where family members were allowed during warm-up. For a moment, everything around seemed to go silent. It was his daughter, taller than the last time she had come down to the court, more mature, but still with that determined look she had since she was little when she wanted something. And in that moment, what she wanted was simple: to be there for her father. Steph dropped the ball he was holding and started walking toward her. The 18,000 people in the stadium began to notice what was happening, and a murmur of anticipation began to grow in the stands. Riley stopped a few meters from him, suddenly feeling the weight of all the cameras, all the looks, all the expectation. But then she looked into her father's eyes and saw the same person who hugged her when she had nightmares, who taught her to shoot in the backyard at home, who sang in the car on family trips. And in that moment, she knew exactly what she needed to do. The Chase Center was at its peak, pre-game energy. 18,000 voices created a symphony of expectation. But in that moment, for Steph Curry, the world had reduced to a single figure walking in his direction. Riley stopped a few steps from him, and for an instant, father and daughter simply looked at each other. It was as if all the years of growth, all the changes, all the pressures of the outside world disappeared, leaving only the purest bond that existed: the unconditional love between a father and his daughter. Steph didn't say anything. He just opened his arms. Riley ran the last few meters and threw herself into him, and Steph enveloped her in a hug that seemed to carry years of unspoken conversations, unexpressed fears, and unconditional love. It was the kind of hug that only happens when two people understand each other completely. Not just as father and daughter, but as human beings facing their own battles. What neither of them realized was that every camera in the stadium had turned to that moment. The ESPN cameramen, accustomed to capturing spectacular plays and explosive celebrations, instinctively knew they were witnessing something special, something that transcended sports. "I believe in you, Dad," Riley whispered in his ear, her words almost lost in the roar of the crowd that had noticed the moment and exploded in applause. "Thank you for being here, Princess," Steph responded, his voice slightly choked. "This means everything to me." The hug lasted only 15 seconds, but it was enough. When they separated, Steph had a smile on his face that his teammates hadn't seen in weeks. Genuine, relaxed, confident. Riley waved at him and returned to the stands, but something had fundamentally changed. The anxiety she felt about being back in the spotlight had transformed into something different. Pride. Pride in being that man's daughter. Pride in having had the courage to show her support publicly. In the stands, Isha was visibly emotional. "You did the right thing," she said, when Riley sat beside her. "He needed to know," Riley responded simply, still feeling the strength of her father's embrace. In the Warriors' locker room, during the last minutes of preparation, there was different energy. Draymond Green, always attentive to the team's mood, noticed immediately. "Man, what happened out there? You're different," he said to Steph. "My daughter came to give me support," Steph responded, adjusting his uniform shirt, "and reminded me why I do this." "Why do you do this?" asked Chris Paul, curious. "For family, to show them that when you believe in something, you fight for it, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." When both teams entered the court for the official game, Steph seemed transformed. His steps had a lightness that wasn't there during warm-up, his movements, a fluidity that had been absent in recent games. His first shot came at 2 minutes and 17 seconds of the first quarter. a three-pointer from the center court logo that he shouldn't have even attempted, but which went in with mathematical perfection. The crowd exploded, and in the family stands, Riley stood up and screamed like she hadn't in years. "That's how you do it, Dad!" she yelled, her inhibitions completely forgotten. The second shot came 3 minutes later. Another three-pointer, this time after a dribble that left two Lakers defenders lost. Then the third, the fourth, the fifth. It was as if Steph had rediscovered not just his aim, but his joy in playing. During a timeout in the second quarter, the TV cameras replayed the pre-game hug moment. In the stadium, when it appeared on the giant screen, 18,000 people stood up in an ovation that lasted almost a full minute. Riley turned to her mother, her eyes shining. Did they like it? Princess, they didn't just like it. They were moved, Isha responded, herself with tears in her eyes. The game was an emotional roller coaster. The Lakers, led by LeBron James and Anthony Davis, didn't make it easy. Each Steph basket was answered, each Warriors run was followed by a visitor reaction. But there was something different about Steph that night. In pressure moments, when normally he might hesitate or force plays, he seemed to find supernatural calm. It was as if Riley's hug had not only relaxed his muscles, but calmed his mind. In the fourth quarter, with the Warriors losing by 5 points and 3 minutes left, Steph looked at the stands and found Riley. She was standing, screaming, cheering with the energy of someone who had completely forgotten her insecurities about being in the center of attention. What happened in the next 3 minutes would enter Bay Area basketball history. Steph hit 4 consecutive three-pointers, one from mid-court, another after a dribble that disconcerted 3 defenders, the third on a rehearsed play that worked perfectly, and the fourth with 22 seconds remaining, which guaranteed the Warriors' victory by 127 to 121. When the final buzzer sounded, Steph ran directly to the family stands. Security and protocol were temporarily forgotten when he climbed a few steps to hug Isha, then Riley, then the twins. "You did it, Dad. You really did it," Riley was shouting, hugging him again. "We did it," Steph corrected. "Your presence here made all the difference." In the post-game interview on the court, with the family still in nearby stands, Steph was asked about his performance. "Look, basketball is a team sport, but sometimes you need reminders of why you play," he said, looking directly at Riley. "Today, my daughter reminded me that it's not just about proving something to the world. It's about giving everything you have for those you love." The reporter, Mark Jones from ESPN, followed up. "We saw the moment before the game between you and Riley. Did that change something?" Steph smiled, that genuine smile that had been absent for weeks. "It changed everything. It reminded me that I'm more than a basketball player. I'm a father. And when my daughter believes in me, I feel capable of anything." On social media, the moment was already beginning to circulate. A Twitter user had posted a video of the hug with the caption, "This is what really matters in sports." And 15 minutes, it had 10,000 retweets. Another Instagram post from a fan who was in the stands showed Riley cheering enthusiastically in the fourth quarter. "Riley Curry reminding us that family is everything," said the caption. But for the Curry family, driving back home to Atherton that night, social media was the last thing on their minds. Riley was nestled between her brothers in the back seat, still processing the night, still feeling the energy of victory. "Dad," she said when they were crossing the Golden Gate Bridge, "thank you for letting me be part of this today. Thank you for reminding me what really matters," Steph responded, looking at her in the rearview mirror. None of them knew that, at that exact moment, The video of the hug was being shared by thousands of people around the world. That they would wake up the next morning to discover that a simple and genuine moment of family love had touched hearts far beyond the basketball world. It was just a daughter supporting her father. But sometimes, the simplest moments are the most powerful. Riley woke up the next morning to the incessant sound of phone notifications on the nightstand. Still sleepy, she picked up the device and saw number after number. 47 missed messages on WhatsApp, 156 Instagram notifications, 89 on TikTok. Her first thought was that she had done something wrong. She ran downstairs to the kitchen, where she found Steph and Isha already up. Both, with their phones in hand and expressions of surprise on their faces. "What's happening?" asked Riley, still in pajamas. "Princess," said Steph, turning his iPhone screen toward her. "You went viral." The screen showed a Twitter video with 2.3 million views. It was the moment of them hugging before the game, filmed from an angle that perfectly captured the genuine emotion of the moment. The caption said, "Steph Curry hugs his daughter Riley before the game, and then has the best performance in weeks. This is what family love can do." Riley sat heavily in a chair. 2.3 million? "And rising," said Isha, showing her own phone. "You're trending on Twitter. Riley Curry, family first, Curry family." "Is this good or bad?" asked Riley, genuinely confused. Steph laughed, pulling a chair to sit beside her. "It depends on how you see it. People are reacting because it was a real, authentic moment. In a world where much of what we see on social media is performative, people recognize genuineness when they see it." They spent the morning reading some of the reactions. A tweet from LeBron James said, "Family is everything. This is beautiful to see." Another, from a mother of 3 children from Phoenix. "I cried watching this." Reminder that our children see us as heroes, even when we don't feel like it. But there was also the less pleasant side. Some comments questioned whether it was staged for the cameras. Others criticized Riley for seeking attention, and some were simply cruel in the way the internet sometimes can be. "How did you deal with this when you were little?" Riley asked her father, scrolling past a particularly unpleasant comment. "I didn't deal with it. You dealt with it," Steph answered honestly. "You were always naturally good at ignoring the noise and focusing on what mattered." At 10 in the morning, Good Morning America was showing the video. At 11, Steph received a call from the Warriors' office. Talk shows were asking to speak with the family. In the afternoon, Ellen DeGeneres had tweeted about the moment. "This is getting too big," said Riley, beginning to feel that familiar anxiety returning. Isha sat on the other side of her. "Riley, you don't owe anything to anyone. If you want to give interviews, we give them. If you don't want to, we don't. Simple as that." "But what if people expect?" "People always expect something," interrupted Steph. "But the only expectation that matters is our own. You did something beautiful yesterday, something that came from the heart. That doesn't become less special because other people saw it." Around noon, Riley made a decision. She posted a photo on Instagram, a simple selfie of her with Steph after the game, both smiling. The caption was short and direct. "Sometimes you just need to hug the people you love and remind them that you believe in them. Proud of my dad always. Viral or not. Family first." The post exploded. In 2 hours, it had 500,000 likes and thousands of comments. But this time, Riley didn't get anxious. She had spoken her truth, simple and direct. In the afternoon, the family decided to go out for lunch at one of their favorite restaurants in Palo Alto. It was the first time they tested what it would be like to be in public after the viral moment. The reaction was immediate but respectful. People recognized Riley and Steph. Some politely asked for photos, others simply waved and smiled. An older woman approached their table. "Sorry to bother you," she said, "but I wanted to say that I'm a grandmother, and your video made me cry. It's beautiful to see a family that clearly, truly loves each other." After she walked away, Riley looked at her parents. "You know what's strange? This doesn't seem scary like before." "What changed?" asked Isha. "I think, before I always felt like I had to be perfect for the cameras. But yesterday, I just wanted to support Dad. I wasn't thinking about how I looked or what people would think. And that's why it was so powerful," said Steph. "Authenticity can't be faked." That night, while the family watched some sports newscasts that were discussing the moment, Riley had a revelation. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "How do you deal with all this pressure? People expecting you to be perfect all the time?" Steph thought for a moment. "You know, until yesterday, I was letting it consume me. But you reminded me of something important. I don't play basketball to impress strangers on the internet. I play because I love the game, love my teammates, and love showing my family that it's worth fighting for your dreams. What if you have a bad game next time? Then I'll have a bad game. And I'll still be your dad, your mom's husband, and a lucky guy who makes a living doing something he loves." Ryan and Cannon, who had been quiet watching TV, suddenly ran to hug their parents and Riley. It was a spontaneous moment, without cameras, without pressure, just a family hugging in the living room. "You know I love you all regardless of anything, right?" said Steph, with all five hugging in a confused pile of arms and laughter. "We know, Dad," said Riley, "and you know we love you regardless of how many points you score, right?" "Now I know," Steph responded, and for the first time in weeks, he really believed it. Later that night, when the children had already gone to sleep, Steph and Isha were on the back porch, looking at San Francisco Bay illuminated in the distance. "Do you think we did the right thing letting this happen?" asked Isha. "Riley being exposed like this again?" "She made the decision," Steph responded. "And it wasn't about exposure. It was about love. I can't regret a moment where my daughter chose to show love." "She's growing up," Isha observed. "She is. And she's becoming an incredible person." In her room, Riley was looking out the window, seeing the city lights twinkling in the distance. Her phone was on silent mode. She had decided that notifications could wait until tomorrow. She thought about the day, about how a simple hug had become something much bigger. But in the end, for her, it was still just that. A hug between father and daughter. The fact that it touched millions of people was beautiful, but didn't change the essence of the moment. Riley fell asleep that night knowing some things for certain. That she loved her family, that she wasn't afraid of the spotlight when she had something genuine to express, and that sometimes the simplest moments are really the most powerful. Out there, somewhere in the world, people were still sharing the video of the hug. Parents were hugging children. Families were having conversations about support and unconditional love. And children were learning that it's beautiful to show that you care. A 15-second moment on a basketball court had become a reminder that, in an increasingly connected but sometimes emotionally distant world, genuine family love still had the power to touch hearts and inspire change. And for the Curry family, that was more valuable than any basketball statistic or view count. It was the reminder that, at the end of the day, what really matters are the people we love and who love us back, unconditionally. authentically, and forever.